guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about Rosie. One of the inspirations for Rosie came from an idea of doing a series of games that were educational about historical events in California. One of those being the factories that produced equipment for the war effort. So now I wanted to do a game about Rosie. And it made sense that it might be an engine builder type of game, a worker placement style of game, or Euro style of game. But it had a war game aspect to it because it was a very important component of us winning World War II was the contributions made by the women who worked in the factories at home. Another inspiration is I love war games. But war games and board games seem like two separate tribes. And I wanted to bridge those two different tribes with kind of a gateway game for board gamers to be introduced to some of the beautiful history and knowledge and learning that comes from playing war games. And so I looked at Rosie as a war game, but not a traditional hex and counter type of war game. And it just made sense to me that this would be the perfect theme to merge the two, a Euro style board game with a war game theme and implement maybe some mechanics from war games into this design. So that was the second inspiration. Finally, growing up, my mother always worked. My father was in the Navy, and we moved around a lot, but my mom always worked. And so I grew up thinking that was normal. Women in the workforce was common. And my mom in so many ways is responsible to a strong work ethic that I have. As I got older and understand the struggle that women had in the workforce, I just became more appreciative of what my mom had to go through to help keep our family going and the struggles that she may have gone through that I had no clue of growing up as a child. I also have two amazing daughters, a granddaughter, a sister, and a whole gaggle of nieces, all amazing women. And I wanted to tell a story, the history of women in the workforce, to highlight the contributions that the Rosies contributed, and dedicate this design to all those wonderful women in my life. So you take all of that, weave it all together, and we come up with this. So, this design has about a year of work put into it, and then pandemic hit and it got sidetracked. But I'll show you the components, talk about some of the mechanics, and something extremely revolutionary in our idea, our minds, that came from my co-designer, David. So I was rambling on about this design, the idea, the concept of building a worker placement, Rosie's in a factory, building tanks and planes and ships, fulfilling government contracts to help the war effort, and coming up with some recipes on what petroleum, steel, aluminum, potassium, nitrate, so whatever might need to be made. This was like the first version. And I'm pondering how I would, I had cubes, and how would I figure out the market, because we want to do some scarcity, because that was an issue of material. And David had this idea in his head independently for a while, didn't really have a design to plug it into. And when I started talking about these resources, I get a text from him one night. Here's an idea. why don't we use a Rubik's Cube? It might be perfect for selecting resources. So I went from this, which doesn't look like that at all, to this. This is innovative. I won't get into all that. We've done a lot of design analysis of what we can do with this and various other types of Rubik's Cubes. There's hex-shaped ones. There's 4 color-sided ones. With 3D printers, we could even make custom ones. We think this opens up a whole new space for game design when it comes to random generation of something. Colors, numbers, symbols, whatever you want to put on these things. And so from that, I reworked those recipes to match the colors on Rubik's Cube. So, basic idea is you have these contracts. And these were inspired by Century Spice Road, except that you have a harder version and an easier version of a contract. Now, in this particular, and this is going to change quite a bit, but currently, if you look at this recipe, warship is a 5. You need a warship, a tank, and an aircraft, or 2 aircraft, and you can complete this contract. So I went through, did a lot of work, created a bunch of these contracts, and I put their point totals up here just so I'd know. Did a whole matrix for these, put them in nice sleeves, and this is a start of something. It's not quite finished. Resource cubes. I'm actually going to take my 3D printer and I'm going to design my own Rosie meeples. And then I'll print a bunch up. So you'll see those in here soon. I mean, meeples are cool, but Rosie meeples are better. Then we spent some time doing some research on war posters. And the famous Rosie war poster was something that was actually put up inside the factories to help motivate the workers to keep producing product, to keep the morale high, and that's where the "we can do it" comes from, right? But there were others. Today's production is tomorrow's enemy's destruction. Attack now. Your army needs more copper, zinc, lead, and more tanks. You give us the fire, we'll give them the hell. These were all, again, posters that were meant to motivate and inspire a lot of times factory workers, general population and factory workers. So what we've done is we've gone through and pulled out a number of these posters into what we call productivity campaigns. So these are cards you can play, and in this case, with this one, may add 1 additional resource per assembly line. Add a new assembly line to your factory. 2 copper to your supply. So rubber supplies, 2 additional oil, 2 additional steel, TNT, aluminum. 1 new Rosie gets added to your factory. And this is a great poster. Soldiers without guns. So those are our productivity campaigns. Players will play those. And what we currently have, and this is going to change, is this is your factory floor with a recipe kind of cut out, right? as you kind of fulfill parts of a contract, you get your resources and you're working on things, and you'll have Rosies assigned to it. I think these are going to get changed into cards so that we can have some customization. You're not limited to just these 4 assembly lines. So you see you have one for munitions, aircraft, tanks, and warship. And everybody's factory will be the same. But I think we're going to take these assembly lines, come up with other recipes, give us some room to do some design, and give you more agency as a player. Same basic concept. You'll roll, choose a limited amount from the supplies. We haven't figured out exactly how we're going to do that. We've done a few different ways, and we're play testing that. And then once you get all your resources, then you can complete a tank, which you can then save up to try to complete a contract. So that's the core mechanic. It's fun in the beginning, and then it turns into a bunch of people sitting around playing solo. Which I want it to be much more of an interactive game. Okay. That's where we are right now with it. Like I said, there's a few other things we're going to be doing, but I wanted to go ahead and start sharing the design and the process. In fact, one of the things I came up with last week is once you fulfill one of these contracts, and there'll be minimum requirements that you have to fulfill to win the war, but we're going to put in a delivery phase that's a bit abstracted, but it deals with putting these equipment and supplies that are created onto freighters that are then sent to Europe, and a certain number of those will get sunk by German U-boats. And so you're going to go through all this effort of creating a bunch of tanks and a bunch of planes that are going to get sunk. It's not going to happen a lot, but it's part of what happened during World War II. It's part of the history. You're going to put all this effort in and not get those victory points because those supplies won't be delivered, which is, then we may work into some ideas that I'm working on, and that are some non-victory point things that could be built, like more freighters. So you have so many freighters, a number of them get sunk, then you can't get your supplies to Europe, and so those factories are going to have to kick out some freighters to make up for the losses. I don't want to make it too wargamey, but I want to have some wargaming aspects into it. Again, it's meant to be a bridge game to take people that are board gamers and get them into playing a war game, or maybe draw some interest into playing and into war games, and conversely getting war gamers to maybe play something that is a little more akin to what they're used to, albeit in a board game style. So that's one of our goals. It may fail miserably, but we think the theme is compelling, and now it's just a matter of doing a killer design to really showcase the history of the Rosies and the war effort, and just how important that war effort was. And as the poster says, we can do it. And hopefully you stick around and watch the journey as we design a Euro war game. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you soon.